Hello and welcome to this screencast on how Google Docs can be used for project management. The first thing I want to show you is the @ menu, which basically is when you type an @ symbol, you get a whole range of different things that you can add into your document. There's lots of really clever things you can do. You can add in links to people. So for example, if I add my colleague Rachel here, that will add them as a link with their details and emails. So you can also mention documents. Recently, I've been working on a document in computer science, which I know has WIP for work in progress in there. And if I type that, that adds a link to the document in there. It also allows you to add other things like checklists. So @ checklist, and then I can start doing do one thing, do another thing, etc., as I go. And when I tick these things off, as you can see, they get ticked just like a real checklist. If you're trying to find something, you can basically just ask for it here, and you can scroll through the list and see all manner of other things. You can add images, charts, dates, references to calendar events, all kinds of different things using that little @ menu. So it's very useful. Another thing you can find in there are drop-down menus. So if I do @ drop down, you can see it appearing here. There's some built-in drop-downs, such as project status with not started, in progress, etc., but you can create your own one. I've now got a drop-down menu in my Google Doc, and I can copy and paste that and have multiple versions of them if I want later on. And there are some pre-built tables as well with some of these in there. So if I go back to the @ menu and go to let's try the project roadmap. Here's a few things. You can put the details of the aspects of the project, different status of it, files. So I could link my coursework doc from earlier. Any notes? Let's put notes with the person reference in there. This is all looking rather helpful. Next thing I want to show you is how you can draft an email inside a Google Doc. This might sound a bit strange, but you may have had a scenario where you're trying to write an email and you know multiple people need to approve the contents of that email, perhaps contribute to it. You might have thrown drafts around or even written the email in Google Docs and then copied and pasted it across. Well, here, if you do email draft, then as you can see, this looks very much like an email. I can put who I'm sending it to, or I could use those people chips earlier, couldn't I? I could do @ send it to a colleague like so, type in the subject, this is a test. I can put the body of the email in and use all of the usual Google Docs formatting for that. And obviously there can be multiple editors contributing to this and making sure the email is just the way you want it to be. When you're done, you click on this and it'll actually convert that into an email ready to send. Let's now have a look at how we could link to Google Forms. If you've done a Google form recently and you have some results, if you go to the responses page, click copy on one of those, then go back to the Google Doc, you can paste that in and it'll give you the option to link it to that form live. When some changes occur, a little message will pop up here asking you if you want to update it, and you can click on that and it will be immediately changed to show the latest responses from the form. There's a subsection called linked objects, which lists all of the locations that there are objects linked through into your document. So let's have a look at tables in a bit more detail. So if I'm adding a table into my Google Doc and I want the first row to be headings that get repeated across tables, so that will allow you to make sure that first row gets repeated on multiple pages. If I then make this expand to fill the next page, look at that, there we go. The header row repeats across onto the second page. If you've got a table with some text that's spreading across multiple lines, the usual behavior is it to spread across, but you can right click and you can tell it allow row to overflow across pages. If you turn that off, it will stop that from happening so that the table row doesn't get split across multiple pages. Now, you might be thinking these pages are a bit annoying. Why not get rid of pages altogether? And you can do exactly that if you go to Page Setup and have a pageless document. This now has no pages. And in fact, as you're working, you can expand this out to be a larger size. So as you're doing your tables, which you can of course grow to be larger, you can have your project planning document not limited to a piece of paper because you're never intending to print it. Another thing that's worth knowing about in Google Docs is the new approvals feature, where you can request somebody else to basically give the stamp of approval to your document. So let's say I've written an amazing document, but before I send it out to everybody, I want to get somebody to give it the stamp of approval. So I can make a request. I can say who I want to approve it. I can get the file to be locked so that changes aren't going to be made during the approval process. So I can send that request across and it will pop up with a banner across the top saying this document is pending approval. Similarly, you can assign people to do certain tasks in a Google Doc if you have done a comment. So this is a thing. If I just put a comment on this in the usual way, and I'm going to assign a comment to somebody, please do this, whatever it is, and I click the assign button, that'll send them an email saying you need to do a certain task and ask them to go in and click that that's been completed.